Alrighty, welcome. Hi. I'm Bridget. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the chemistry teacher. If you've taken a chem class here, you get me. If you haven't taken a chem class here and you are going to take one, you get me. That's all it is, okay? So, college theme. I'm not the first one. I'm the second one on this campus. I was the first one when I did this on the campus yesterday. Who can, we can, the will to overcome. The poster is somewhere. No? Shocking. There's a poster. There's a poster over there on campus. I say who can, we can with science. If you want to overcome anything, almost anything, I won't say 100% because we don't do that in science. Almost anything you can overcome with science, okay? So, part of what I was going to talk about, I was mindlessly scrolling through social media, as I do, for hours on end. And I came across this little gem and gave myself a good little chuckle, so much so that I wanted to save it. Nature wants 5 of your 7 children dead. It wants you dead by 50. Anything other than that is brought to you by science and technology. So there you go. Okay? And I will argue that technology is a branch of science anyways, so science. All right, so we're going to talk about science. I'm going to spend a tiny, tiny little bit of time trying to talk about what it is. And I say tiny, tiny because this is really hard. Have you ever sat and tried to actually define in a concise manner what science is?
Yes.
Good. I'm very happy. It's hard, though, right? If you're trying to... Douglas is arguing. You can't hear on the camera, Douglas is arguing.
It says the humanist to the scientist.
Hey.
It's just words, Bridget.
It is words, right? But it's a lot of stuff, right? You're trying to define a whole spectrum of things. Which is why we break science down into subjects, right? Chemistry, biology, sociology, physiology, all of the ologies, okay? We break it down because it's a lot easier to define. So instead of trying to write, a sentence or two, I like a checklist, okay? There are things that you have to have in order to have science. Now, this checklist, please don't think this is all or nothing. It is not. You don't have to check all of these boxes to get science, but you do have to get at least some of them. 2 in particular, focusing on the natural world and relies on evidence. Has to. The rest of them are great, right? But some of them, and I will point out the second from the bottom, leads to ongoing research, usually is the case. Although every so often, it kind of leads to a dead end. So it doesn't have to lead to ongoing research. It will. It doesn't have to. So I want you to keep this in mind, and I'm going to shift focus a little bit into less about what science is, more importantly to me, how it works, right? How science works. It's a big, broad topic. How many of you have seen a diagram like this before? You can't see it?
Sort of.
Sort of, kind of, sort of. I've taught with this diagram before, okay? This is the scientific method, right? The scientific method. The linear version, the simplified version, okay? Simplified. I like it because you have an introduction to something that is huge and vast and all of these things, but it does have some problems, right? This really does imply that it's linear, that you go through these steps all the time, in order, every time, and if you don't hit every step, you're doing something wrong. You're not, but that's kind of what you see with this, right? Could imply that this is a very individualistic thing, that each person is doing their method in this order by themselves. They're not. Also, this implies science ends, right? You reach the end of the diagram, communicate your results, and you're done. Done, I'm walking away. Also, not. At least with this, you get a little bit of a loop in when your results don't align with your hypothesis, it tells you that it goes back and becomes back. That's great and important, but it's not enough, okay? Now again, I get it, I understand. I've taught with this. It's just a really simplified version of what we actually have. What we really have is this dynamic, creative process where it's kind of a dealer's choice. You kind of get to pick your ending, if you will. If you remember those books that you can like flip to this page if you choose this choice or this page. It's kind of like that, okay? And here's the last bullet point here I really like. Scientific conclusions are always revisable. Always revisable if they're supported by evidence. Scientific investigations are always ongoing, raising new questions, and old ones are being answered, right? The process of science, a colleague of mine just said it recently, is self-correcting, okay? When we learn new things, we can change what we think. That's the point, right? If new evidence pops up to change your way of thinking, that's the whole process of science. It's not static at all. Also, I will say, science relies on creative people, thinking outside the box. A lot of the times you think science is not super creative. I don't consider myself a very creative person. Probably why I did not enjoy grad school very much, because I am not all that creative. I can be, but I don't like it. It's not where I live, okay? But in general, some of the best scientists are super creative, because you gotta come up with something new. You have to think of a way to do something that's never been done before. That is super creative, okay? Okay, cite your sources, people. You will see at the bottom of all of my slides I've cited my sources, but I like this enough that I need to talk about it. While I was deciding what I wanted to talk about, and I was doing a little bit of research on it, I stumbled across this website called Understanding Science. It's the title of the whole page. Produced by the University of California Museum of Paleontology at Berkeley, in collaboration with a diverse group of scientists and teachers, was funded by the National Science Foundation. I literally had to close my web browser at one point because I was down the rabbit hole of just clicking on different pages on this website, and I could not get off. This presentation would be like 3 weeks long if I put in everything I wanted to put in, okay? If this piques your interest, if you are interested in learning more about this, I highly recommend you check this website out. All of the information in this presentation has come from that and will continue to come from that, and it's really well done. And sometimes you find these websites and you're like, Understanding Science for grade school, and you're like, okay. This is geared towards essentially all of it. They have specific resources for grades 13 through 12 through 16 for college students. So if this is something that interests you, again, highly recommend. All right, are we ready for the better one? Get rid of the linear. We're in a circular pattern here, people, okay? This is a much better representation of what science really is. And all of those steps are going to be in here, and we're going to explore each of these a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to blow each of these up, and there's stuff in each of these bubbles. But you get this very circular, this doesn't end. You jump into this pattern where you want to, and then you go. And there are so many choices that you get to make within these bubbles that each person is going to do things a little bit differently. And that's totally okay, right? The point is you are following the science, right? You're following the evidence here. So I'm going to start at the top of the circle, right? With exploration and discovery. This is generally speaking where you would enter the cycle of science, if you will. Something happens, right? New technology shows up so we can learn new things. The scanning electron microscope was huge in science because it allows us to see things that we had never seen before, see super tiny down to the atomic level, and you learn a whole lot when you see new things, right? Practical problems. You need to do something and you can't do it. Simple curiosity, I think a lot of times we forget that this is good. Just having a curiosity about something is really good. Personal motivation, serendipity, surprising observation. How you get in is going to be different, right? Linearly, it's you make an observation. Well, yes, but how that comes to you is very different. And then when you look at all of these, again, a lot of the linear ideas are in here, making observations, asking questions, exploring the literature. We're all part of the simplified version. But all of these are connected. There is no first, second, third step. You do these in whatever order suits your particular situation best, right? Maybe you start with exploring the literature. You're curious about something, so you go see what people have done about it. You don't have to take the time to form a hypothesis before you do that. You can just do it, right? So and they're all interconnected, and you can move back and forth. You can hit all 5 of these. You might not. You might hit 2 or 3 before you move on. Again, this is kind of a dealer's choice thing, right? Testing ideas. This is the heart and soul of what science is testing ideas. Okay, hypothesis, you think about what you would expect, what you actually get. and then probably most importantly, how you interpret that. Okay, and this is where I think science as a whole, scientists as a whole need to do a little bit better job of communicating how we're interpreting the data. Why we interpret certain things the way we do. This is the data, that's great, people need to see the data. But if you don't know what you're looking at, data can get very overwhelming. If you've ever looked at a scientific paper and you've just scrolled through the data, it is a mess, right? You don't know what you're looking at, and this is what science has to do, is tell you what you're looking at, okay? I want to point out very important things here. Your data may support a hypothesis, may oppose a hypothesis, may inspire new hypotheses, and it may just provide some assumptions you make. What it doesn't do is prove or disprove a hypothesis. That's not a thing that we do. And if you're in a science class, most of your science teachers will be really darn picky about the words you use here. You don't prove a hypothesis, you support a hypothesis. Why? Because science is always ongoing, right? We don't ever really get to 100%. We get to, this is the best we got at the moment, and until something comes up, this is what we know. But you don't prove or disprove, you support or oppose. And by the way, if your data does not support your hypothesis, that's okay. Again, you're learning something out of the process. I tell my students that all the time. Just because your experiment failed doesn't mean you didn't learn something, and we want you to learn something, okay? If you can't test something, then you're not really doing science. Again, this is the evidence part, right? You have to have the evidence. I get very excited into the masses. Very difficult. All right, community analysis and feedback. You don't live in a bubble. You don't do science in a bubble. Everything you do has some sort of community impact, right? So peer review, feedback, we're going to talk a lot more about this in a second. Replication, if you've been in a science class and your teacher, me, makes you do things 3 times, the reason is science has to be able to be replicated, has to be. If you can do the same thing 3 times to get the same results, great. If you can't, something is wrong. Human error is most of it, but something might be wrong, okay? Discuss with colleagues. We do this all the time. Friends, people you work with. You're having discussions about things that you're thinking about all the time. Publication, generally speaking, is the goal for grad students and research and things like that. Because when something has been published in science, it's gone through the peer review process. So we're going to talk about why that's super important. But then this feeds back and forth, right? You publish something, or you discuss with colleagues, and you come up with new ideas, okay? You just have a conversation, which, again, you're not in a bubble. Okay, peer review, we're gonna talk about this. I have a whole slide on it, because that's how important it is. If you've ever had a science teacher tell you you need a peer-reviewed source, this is why. Have you ever had a friend or a colleague or a family member read an email or a text before you sent it? You've ever been really mad and you're typing something out and you're like, I need someone to tell me I'm crazy? That's peer review. I mean, in a heartbeat, that's what peer review is. In science, it's a little more complicated and takes a lot longer. Okay? This process takes a long time. The scientists study something, they write up their results in a paper, they send that paper to a journal. That journal editor then sends that paper out to others in their field. And this is really important. Not all scientists know the same things. I know chemistry. I know very little about biology. Should I know more? Probably. But could I peer review a biology paper? Absolutely not. Right? They are sending this paper out to people who are studying the same thing you are. They are your direct peers. You don't get to pick them. They just go. Right? They read your paper, they study your stuff, they make comments, they tell the editor, I like it, I have these questions, I think this needs to be looked at further. That editor can send the paper back to the original team, they can make changes or not, although if the editor is telling you to make changes, you're probably going to make changes. And this process goes on, okay, for a while. Eventually, if you've met the scientific standards of that journal, you will be published. And if you're not, you will be rejected. Having a paper rejected is not the end of the world, by the way. This is super competitive. Where is it? The journal Science accepts less than 8% of articles that it gets submitted. And Nature is, oh no, sorry, the New England Journal of Medicine is 6%. Okay? So having a paper rejected, it's like Yale or Harvard, right? They're college, but they're like college. And then you're like, do I want all that pressure? No, right? So that's kind of where those journals lie. There are plenty of other journals that have a much better acceptance rate, but it's a highly competitive process, okay? Scientific knowledge is cumulative, it builds on itself. What you publish becomes background for someone else. You used someone else's research for your background. If you're depending on someone else to have good science, you really want to have good science so that somebody else can use it. Thank you. I got the, hey, pay attention to the time, okay? Sorry. I told you I could talk about this for 3 weeks, okay? This applies, I use the text and email example. Spoon River College is doing this right now. We're going through our accreditation process. HLC is coming. If your teachers haven't told you about that, now you know. Higher Learning Commission's coming. We are getting peer reviewed by other community colleges to say that we're basically doing what we need to do. We're improving, we're making changes, we can grade degrees, we can do all the stuff that you need us to do. But it's a peer review process, okay? It's huge. Okay. What comes out of this? Anything you want, right? You're addressing societal issues, informing policy. We've had 2 years of this, right? In theory. Solving everyday problems. Okay, I really like this one because we focus so much on like what you're really like physically getting out of something. You're developing new technology, like what are you going to give to society? It's okay to do science just to satisfy your curiosity. And we kind of have lost that in this, you have to get funded and you have to get grants and someone has to pay you to do all of this. It's okay to just be curious and do something. That's really ideal. So I really like that it's included on here. Again, building knowledge, communal building knowledge, right? And then of course, the golden developing technology. We always want the new stuff, faster stuff. Give me a faster cell phone. How do you get a faster cell phone? Well, you get a faster microchip. Well, how do you do that? A lot of research, a lot of money, a lot of science, okay? Hey, I'm right on time today. I got 3 minutes. Questions? Comments, concerns of any kind? Yes, Laura.
Thinking about the slide where you were talking about interpreting data and how complicated and the clarity is probably difficult, what do we think about how the CDC has been presenting information to the public? Could they be doing a better job, do you think, interpreting the data in a way that the general public?
I think this is a two-way street, right? The CDC is run by the scientists that are doing their research. The person communicating to the public is not necessarily the scientists doing their research, right? And so that piece of communication probably needs to match. But at the same time, the general public needs to have a better understanding of why things are changing, right? It's not because someone at the CDC is like, oh, let's make our lives a living hell for 2 years, right? The data is supporting the changes. And the problem is you're trying to get all of that into maybe a 1-minute news segment or a 30-second soundbite, and you just can't. So yes, there could be a better job done, but it's a little just more complicated than saying they need to do a better job communicating. They have limitations, which you understand, but wish they didn't. Anybody else? Anything else? I got 30 seconds. Yesterday I did this in Macomb, and my colleague Michael Maher asked what was 1 or 2 of the shining hallmark moments that I thought of when I go back to this, right? What are the highlights of science? And I told him yesterday, I thought hands down modern medicine, right? The ability to take a drug and make a drug in a lab and have that help. I left the room and went, yeah, but it's more specific. Vaccines! I literally walked out and I was like, well, that was the hit me on the head answer. What's the reason we can live past 50? You're vaccinated against a whole lot of stuff that would have killed you otherwise, right? So There you go. Vaccines. Why are we living past 50?
Sanitation.
The Industrial Revolution, sanitation, all of these things, right? It's not one thing, but if I had to pick a highlight, modern medicine and vaccinations.
So they came out of that time
Yeah,
period.
they all came out of the Industrial Revolution. I'm done.
Yay.